Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining me here today in our webinar about user testing. So let's start with the agenda for today. Okay, just a quick look at the agenda. We will start off with a bit of introduction and a little bit of why innovation and digital factory. And then we will dive into the topic of our webinar today, which is user testing. We'll start with the W's of user testing, which is the what, the why, the when. And then after that, we will take a look at some of the approaches and then the techniques, tools, and then I will open the chat for some feedback and some questions. Okay. All right, let's get on to it. So just a bit of introduction. My name is Ellen. I'm a UX designer with Y Innovation. So Y Innovation, we are a digital consultancy, innovation and organization change experts management with 3 offices in Asia, in Singapore, Hong Kong, and mainland China. So our expertise is based on 3 pillars. So we have business innovation, agile adoption, and human-centric design. But today in our topic, we will be focusing a little bit more about, human-centric design over here, since we are talking about user testing. Okay, but this webinar is powered by Digital Factory. So Digital Factory is the ideas accelerator arm of Y Innovation. So just a little bit of our services. So we are your one-stop ideas accelerator. So we have 4 main stages. At first, will be the explore stage. In this stage, we will look into your business idea, understand your market, explore new business opportunities, and build your value proposition. So there's a lot of research going on in Explore. Next up, we will move on to the prototype stage, where we'll be designing a user-centric product. Here, we will build your low-fi and hi-fi prototypes. We'll conduct more usability tests, and we'll get feedback from here, and we'll iterate. After we're done with the prototype, and then we will move on to the build. Now, the build phase is where you will start building your MVP, which is your minimum viable product. We'll build it incrementally, and we will prepare for your product launch. And then after your product launch, post-launch, we will go on into this thrive mode. Here, we will measure your success. We'll learn from all the feedback from the users, and we'll see how to improve your product. So this is the 4 main stages that we have at Digital Factory. So just a quick look into the roadmap of the Digital Factory. Like I mentioned, in Explore, we'll do a lot of research. All the legwork will be done here. So for example, customer profiling, market research, value proposition, we'll prioritize, take a look at your business model. We'll really pump all of those up. Then we'll move on to the prototype. We'll look at your user journey, map it out, do some low-fi, hi-fi prototype, do a lot of testing here, build your product roadmap so that get it ready for the build phase, where we will define and build your MVP. Then we will focus a bit on digital marketing here, and then we will launch it, and comes to the thrive, where we'll look at a lot of data analytics, we'll look into growth hacking, product improvement, and then have some knowledge transfer to wrap up the whole service. Okay, so this is the wrap up. Okay, so here are some of our clients, not necessarily for Digital Factory, but for the whole of Y Innovation itself, since we have 3 arms, right? We have the training arm, we have the innovation arm, and right now Digital Factory is the ideas accelerator arm. So let's begin our topic for today. User testing. So what is user testing? It is a technique, a user-centered technique to evaluate a product by testing it on its users. So you probably heard of user testing before. Then chances are you've probably heard of usability testing too. So they are often used quite interchangeably. Like we'll be talking about the same thing, but then some people call it user testing, some people call it usability testing. So the question that we start with is, are they the same? Is user testing and usability testing the same thing, but just with a different name? Well, the short answer is no. Technically, they are not the same thing. So let's take a look at the differences, right? So user testing focuses on the idea behind the product or the service. It addresses the want or the need. So in user testing, we are asking the question, do my users need the product? So here's a user, so they will ask themselves, do I need this product? So this is what we're trying to validate in user testing, the need or the want, right? Whereas usability testing focuses on the platform experience. So how intuitive is the platform? Will they know how to use it properly? Can they complete the tasks to get the benefits of the product? So can they use the product? So that is the question that we are asking them in usability testing. So that's the main difference between user and usability testing, okay? But no need to get too caught up in the terminology. What's important is that we know the goal behind the testing. So this is more of a nice to know sort of thing, okay? So, and then comes the question, why do we even do this at all? Because user testing, sometimes it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. So why do we test at all? This user testing is where you will get some of your most crucial insights. For example, you will discover opportunities, you will identify obstacles, you will learn more about the end users, and of course, you will, on the way, you will uncover some usability issues naturally. So, okay, so these are the crucial things you will never discover on your own or even within your team without doing user testing. So let's look at one good example or case study from one of my clients, right? So we were working on with this client. They were working on an internal product for their employees, or let's call them the agents, right? So it's an internal agents. So these agents, how it works is that they have a certain quota or a goal that they always aim to hit when it comes to their work. And we noticed that each agent, they have their own ways of tracking and optimizing their work. And it's often manual. So usually they'll have a little notepad or anything. Usually it's a notepad, and then they will write down, so, okay, my goal for this month or weekly or even daily. So this is something that they do daily, quite religiously, right? So we were thinking, oh, why don't we create a feature that helps them to do this? I mean, it's already something that they are doing daily, like they're doing this religiously daily. So it's something that they want, it's something that they need because they need to hit their quota, right? They want to perform well. So why don't we, inside this internal product for them, why don't we have a feature that sort of helps them to do this? Then it's a no-brainer. So we are sure that they will love it, right? So we came up with the idea, we got a storyboard, and then okay, let's share with them. And we had such high expectations. We're like, oh my God, they are going to love it. They are going to say, oh, thank you so much for doing this. This will make our life so much easier, praises all around. That was our big expectations, right? Okay, all pumped up. So we did a storyboard. We went to do some testing, some interviews. So we showed our client, right? So this is the new feature. What do you think? And alas, they were like, no way, Jose. I am not going to use it. I hate it. If you do this, I will never touch it. And this took everybody by surprise. Like, it took my team by surprise. It even took some of the internal team, not the agents that were working on the product with us. It surprised them a lot as well. But only here do we discover the bigger underlying issue within the company. So there was an issue with the trust and autonomy between the agents and the management. And that is why you see so much resistance between this idea. And the thing is, the resistance was so strong that we actually scrapped the whole idea, because it's just, they refuse to use it. So if we are going to force develop it, it's just not going to be used, and then there's going to be tension all around and so on. So we scrapped it. But at this point, it was not too painful to scrap, because like I mentioned, the way we presented the idea to them is through a storyboard. So this is also something that I would like to iterate. So in order to do a test, if possible, you do not need to develop in order to test. So this way, because it is sufficient for us to translate the idea without actually developing or actually writing a single line of code. So that's what we did to get our initial reactions. And then we got such a strong reaction. So could you imagine if we went on and told the engineers to, can you develop so that we can do some interviews? And then after they took weeks to develop, and then they hated it, and then we said, oh, sorry, we're not going to use it. The engineers are going to be very, very upset about that, and everybody will be upset, right? So the important thing here is, as much as possible, test with something small. so that you're ready for these kind of things, okay? But this is a very interesting case study, and it really shows the importance of user testing. Why do we even test at all? It's these kind of unpredicted situations that we can really make use of, okay? So then comes the question, okay, now that we know why we have to test, when do we test? So user testing is usually best done after obtaining the big idea, because it addresses the need, right? So before spending too much time on the production, we can use this to validate your idea or to validate new features. Whereas usability testing is because you need the prototype. So after developing at least some kind of low fidelity prototype of your interface, and anytime a new interface design, you feel that you need to test the usability, then you can just do a simple usability test. So these are usually the good ideal moments where you want to do some testing for both user and usability. Okay, now let's look at some of the testing approaches. Approach number one, we have qualitative and quantitative research. So what are these? So quantitative feature is gathering numerical data. It's to track and measure. You measure a lot of data here. So it is usually the metrics are shown in graphs or in charts, and they deliver quite conclusive and measurable results, but it's not explorative. Whereas qualitative, it's non-numerical data. So you don't see metrics in graphs and charts. And it focuses on the why, the what and the why. So it measures opinions and views. And for qualitative, it usually brings more depth in understanding that quantitative cannot give you. But in return, it is a little bit harder to analyze because it's not as straight to the point as quantitative, okay? So how and when do we conduct both these research and tests? In quantitative, it's usually we use surveys and questionnaires, and it's used to formulate your ideas and assumptions due to the quantitative nature, right? So these are quick and easy answers to more general questions. Whereas qualitative, we usually do interviews and observational research. So it's validating your ideas, validating your assumptions, and it looks beyond the issue at hand because it's explorative. So that's qualitative. Then we have moderated versus unmoderated testing, which is our second approach. So moderated testing means that, of course, it's conducted by a moderator. So there's a facilitator on site to guide the user through all of these different tests. Whereas unmoderated, then you won't have a moderator or facilitator. So it's usually using automatic tools online, right? It's automated. So there's some pros to both. So the pros of moderated is that it's easier to test when it comes to more complex products. So usually complex products, it's a better idea to do moderated tests, right? And you have more product insights because it's moderated, you're there. If you see something, then you can follow up with questions, you can observe, you can come up with other ideas on the spot, right? And of course, because you're there and it's moderated, you have technical support. So if they need anything, you'll be there to assist them. Whereas unmoderated, you have, the good thing is you have quick feedback on simple products, fast and quick feedback. And then it's conducted in a more natural environment. So even in a testing lab, the users tend to feel more autonomy. So they feel more at ease because it's unmoderated. It's not so strict in a way, right? So it might help them feel better so that the results are more natural. And it's more cost and time friendly when it comes to unmoderated. Then let's look at some of the cons for both sides. In moderated, it is much more time consuming and also much more costly, especially if you're doing in-person moderation, and it requires the users to travel. So there might be a little bit of inconvenience if you're not doing a remote moderated session. Whereas in unmoderated, because you have the same questions and scenarios for everybody, so it might introduce a bit of bias and it might affect the end result. And if it's unmoderated, you don't have any user support if they need user support, right? So, and in moderated, so moderated testing is a little bit more observational. So it's usually used to understand the reasons behind the user's behavior. Whereas Unmoderated testing is used to test the user's reaction towards the product. So these are some of the differences. So third one, we have in-person and remote testing. So in-person testing, I think this is quite obvious. So the participants and moderator, they're in the same location, whereas remote then we'll have to do it over a conference call or a screen recording. So it's digital, right? So the pros to both sides, of course, in person, you can have more user observations and you have more support because you're there, you're in a dedicated space. And the test can be adapted to each of the user's profile. When it's in person, it's easier to do that. Whereas in remote, it's more cost-friendly, it's more time-friendly. And again, it's observed in their natural environment. So because you can do, like we are doing here, it's a remote session. So both of us are in the natural environment, it's less pressure, you get faster results, and of course, it's more flexible in terms of organizing the session. Whereas the cons, so in person, there's a lot of logistics, there's a lot of preparation, so that's time, that's cost, right? And you have limited participants for the locations, especially in these COVID times, it might be a bit more challenging, a lot more challenging actually to have in person. Whereas remote, it's good to in the sense that it is less cost and less effort, but then if there's any technical issues, it's hard to fix, and there are a lot of technical dependencies. You have to make sure that your users knows how to use the automated tools, stuff like that, and you have task limitations, and of course you have less behavioral insights because you're not there to observe the whole thing, right? So it's more guessing. You can't really see the whole of what they're doing. And the fourth approach, we have explorative assessment and comparative testing. So let's take a look at each of these very quickly. So explorative test. So this is usually used during the discovery phase. It's to collect new insights about a product. So usually in explorative tests, participants are asked to brainstorm, they give their opinions and their feedback, new ideas and concepts. So this is where we discover and we explore new things. Whereas in assessment research, is usually used after the development of the product. It's to assess the satisfaction, it's assessing and gathering the user's responses to your product. So that's assessment research. And then after that, we have the comparative research, which this is used in any phase that you want, either the discovery or the post developing. So it's used to evaluate the preference of the users on different products and different features. So these might all be quite a lot to take in, but all we need to keep in mind that all these tests are for different contexts and different objectives. So as I mentioned before, though, the most important thing is to know what you're testing for. What is the goal of your test? What are you trying to prove? What are you trying to disprove? What are you trying to find out? Okay, so we have to always keep that in mind at the back of our head when we are thinking or doing any kind of testing. So if we want to find out, okay, so these are good approaches, but which approach should I take? So this is a good graph to sort of give you an idea on how to measure and how to decide on which approach we should take or which approach is the best for us. So let me explain this graph over here quickly. So we have 4 quadrants, right? So we have remote, in person, we have moderated, we have unmoderated. So we are asking, so which one should I go for? So how you see or how you read this graph is that there are 4 icons. So you need to see, of course, the budget. How much budget do you have? How much time can you allocate for this test? How much user context do you have? So how much do you understand your users? That's user context. And how much user autonomy do they have? So user autonomy is how much guidance do they need or how much control do they have over the situation or the test that you want to put your users on, right? So for example, if let's say I have a lot of budget, I have a lot of time, it's a big project, right? So I allocate a lot of budget and time, but actually I don't really know the users quite well. It's quite general. It's not very targeted. And then I don't feel that they will have a lot of user autonomy because this is quite a complicated user or quite complicated, sorry, not user, quite a complicated test. So it means that my user context and my user autonomy is low. So we'll see this one. I have a lot of budget, a lot of time. Low context and autonomy means I probably best fare in a in-person and moderated test. Okay, so this is a quick graph to really quickly see which one is more suitable for you. It's all really depending on your situation. Okay. So now that we have the approaches done, let's move on to several methods and techniques. So method number one, we have observation. So observation is literally just observing the users on the fields. So this is for you to observe and understand the activities, understand their personas. A few things to prepare from here. So actually there's no specific preparation or interaction needed, but you might need an observation guide. So it might be useful in some stages. You need some recording material. And of course you need your user's consent when you're recording, right? So that's quite important as well. So the pros of observation is that you get a lot of genuine insights, right? You get body language, you get facial reactions, you get any kind of physical reactions, or even tone and stuff like that. So you get a lot of insights. The cons are it's time consuming, especially if if you're recording, then usually after that you have to watch through the recording to see what you missed. So there's a lot of post work involved after the testing. So that's one of the cons. It's quite time consuming. Next up, we have card sorting. So card sorting is a technique in user experience design. It's where a group of users are asked to structure information based on their understanding, based on their preference. So for example, okay, this is quite a common scenario for card sorting. So let's say, so first up, they will get a stack of cards like that. And then as the moderator, I will ask them, okay, can you sort the cards into the groups according to your understanding or where they should belong together? And then they would start sorting them. I think shoes goes with sunglasses, backpack should go with tote bag and fanny pack. And then dresses should go with coats and trousers. So from there, you can see where they assign. And then you can even tell them to assign names to the groups. Okay, I think this is clothing. This should be bags, and this should be, I don't know, accessories. So, and then when you do this to a larger group of users, for example, maybe 20 to 50 users, you start seeing a pattern. And more importantly, you start seeing what the general mental model of your users are. And this is very important for you to take that mental model and use it on your product. So you do the heavy lifting for them, right? So that when you launch a product, they understand it very well because you're using a very common mental model. So this is how you find that out, using card sorting. So in order to prepare, you will need some physical cards or some digital cards. If you're doing a remote session, you will need to recruit some users, some interviewees. The good thing about card sorting is that it's a pretty easy and cheap way to structure information. And usually it's quite fun for the users as well. Right? And there's direct interaction. The cons are the remote session will require participants to know how to use a virtual whiteboard, because if you're doing this remotely, you'll probably have to use some kind of collaboration tool. So we need to make sure that they know how to use that tool. If not, then a lot of time it's going to be wasted on teaching them how to use it and stuff like that. And usually for this, we try not to take too much of the user's time in order to test. Then number 3, we have surveys. So surveys are a method of gathering specific information and data from a group of users. It's usually conducted by phone or mail or via the internet. Sometimes you also see people getting surveys like in the corner of the street or the middle of the street. Sometimes last time in Orchard Road, I've seen that before. They do that too. So in order to prepare, of course, you will need the survey. You'll need to recruit some users. So recruitment is only for qualitative surveys, right? So quantitative is usually blasted out to the general public. So that one doesn't require too much of recruitment. So the pros of surveys are that you will receive a large number of data. Then if you do it online, it's paperless and automated, so it's not too hard. Whereas the cons are, if you are doing a quantitative survey, sometimes it can lack in accuracy in the terms of what you're trying to find out. And it can also be time consuming because you're dealing with a lot of data here when it comes to survey. This is an example of one of the surveys that we did here with my team. So this is an automated result from one of our past surveys. So we have this over, I think, almost 100 participants. We are using a specific target personas for this. Next up, we have interviews. So interviews are the research method, which a researcher will ask the user questions about a topic of interest, anything like the use of a system, behaviors, habits, and of course, the end goal is always to learn more about that topic. So in order to prepare, you will need some interview guide. You will need to prepare some questions. And if you're doing a prototype testing, you will have to prepare a testing scenario as well, right? Some scenarios for them to simulate. Then after that, of course, you need your interviewees, you need to recruit. And it's always best to have one moderator, so one interviewer and one note taker. This is also quite important because if you are the moderator, you need to be very focused on your interaction with your user. So you try not to be distracted by note taking. So it's best to have one moderator and one note taker. That's my recommendation. Right? So the pros of this is you will get some reliable and very detailed insights, like with my example earlier on with my client, with the agents that we did the interview, and they were like, no, we don't want to use this. So interview is one of my favorite and most reliable, I would say, method of user research, because you will uncover a lot of info. And usually, if you do it well, you can uncover bigger underlying things like we uncovered last time with our client, right? But of course, it can be expensive and it can also be time consuming. Then next up, we have a sessions recording. So sessions recording is recording users' actions, usually done online. So we observe and we see how we can improve. So we record and observe mouse clicks, movements, scrolling, so any kind of online activity, right? So to prepare, of course, you need your prototype, like your website or your landing page or your app, in order for them to interact with. And you need some kind of recording tool or software. The good thing is it's fast and it's quite inexpensive, or at least the software that I'm using is quite inexpensive. The cons are it will be pretty time consuming to review and analyze the results, because the last time it took me, I think, a good couple of days to watch all the recordings because I was trying to find something out. This is an example. So this is our landing page for our training Unmoderated Academy. So here I was watching the recordings because I was investigating the low rate for our call to action, which is our action button, right? Then I was wondering, why is nobody clicking? Why are we not getting any responses? And then I start questioning, is it because we don't have any visitors? Is our marketing strategy not doing well? But then when I take a look at the metrics, I said, no, we're actually getting visitors. People are coming here, but they're just not pressing that CTA, that call to action. So why? And so only from a few, maybe, I don't know, a few hours of going through all this, then I start to see a pattern, right? I see people scrolling up and down and up and down and up and down, and the mouse is like going everywhere. And usually when you see this kind of behavior, it's because they are looking for something. So only here did I realize that it's not that they don't want to click on the CTA, but they actually can't find it. So they don't know that my CTA is a CTA. So we had to fix it, right? So now that I know that, so we did a few design changes. We did some UX copywriting, and after that, voila, we started to see some action. So only from here that we can directly see, and we can stop guessing like, oh, why are they not pressing our button or whatever, and then we start speculating other things. Whereas here, you can really see what they do, and then from there, we can come up with solutions. Next up, we have a 5-second test. So just like the title, it's literally a 5-second test. This is used to gather the user's first impressions and their first reactions towards your product. Okay, let's do a simple demonstration of this, okay? We'll do a 5-second test. Okay, what I ask for you is maybe after this, I will show you an image. Look at it and try to absorb it. Okay, ready? Let's do it. 3, 2, 1. And we're done. So that is literally how you conduct a 5-second test, right? Just show someone something and tell them to, okay, look at it, absorb it, count to 5, and then after that, take it away from them. And then, of course, this is only half of the experiment. After that, you need to follow up with some questions. So now that you've seen that the prototype, so for example, my question could be, who do you think the target audience is for that website? Or what do you think the product or service is about? So here you can really see if the first impressions are what you intended to be from your design. So this is a very quick and easy way to do that, right? And you can even test the purpose of the page using a 5-second test as well. So yes, in order to do this, of course, you need a prototype of a screenshot of your product, like what I did just now. Then you need some follow-up questions after that, right? So again, they're cheap. You will get a large amount of answers, but you might get limited scope of insights. And usually a 5-second test is used holistically with other testing techniques as for an individual test itself, it's quite good, but it doesn't cover a lot, okay? Then next up, we have some landing page experiments. So this is a landing page is basically like a mini website. So it's like a one-page site to present a product that may not exist yet to test the market traction. Like, for example, if you need to validate your market need or your market demand, you want to make sure that you're creating a product or service that your users will want, right? Remember what we spoke about in user testing? You're trying to find if there's a need or want. So this is where you can potentially pitch to your potential customers. So you create a platform for them to communicate their interest. So you tell them, hey guys, I have an idea. This is how it works. Do you think this is something that you will love? And then of course they can, there's a call to action for them to, yes, I'm interested, or even I believe you guys have heard of Kickstarter. So Kickstarter, this is the whole concept of it. So you can actually back them up with some funds. So here you can have validation and you can also get some financial support to develop your product as well, right? Okay, however, if you want to take it up a notch, you can test your non-existing product without your user's knowledge by using a feature fake. So what's a feature fake? So a feature fake is actually something like, for example, if you see right here, if I am offering a service, right? Okay, this is my service buffer, and this is what I can do for you. Would you want this? So you are telling them that this service is already existing. Okay, do you want it? Then you click, yes, I want it. Then you say, oh, actually, sorry, we don't have it yet. But if you want, you can give me your email, then I can follow up with you, blah, 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 things like that. But then some people might ask me, but Ellen, how is this different? Why shouldn't I just do the landing page experiment? But the difference is that if you do a feature fake, you might get more genuine responses, because if you're doing a landing page experiment, you are telling your users that I have an idea for the product, but it's not ready yet. So if they know that it's not ready yet, so I'm not gonna get it anyway now. So I'm not even gonna spend time or spend my energy to click to register my interest at all, because I know that it's not there. But if you sort of tell them that, yes, it's ready, do you want it? And they say, yes, I want. So they click. But then, of course, after that, the service or the product is not there. But then you can see very genuine response from them. So even if they come here and then they're like, it's not ready. Okay, I'm not going to give you my email. Doesn't matter, because they already clicked here. You already know, you will have the data that they are interested. So that's how you get it, right? But please use this with caution, because we are sort of lying to our users. So it might upset them sometimes. So I've never used a feature fake before. This is just one technique, but we need to use this with caution, okay? We don't want to upset our users. And I believe this is our last technique. So this is also one of my favorite techniques. It's very interesting. So the Wizard of Oz technique. It's an experiment to simulate a digital product or service, but it is manually carried out by a human being at the back end. I think that's where the name Wizard of Oz came from, because behind the curtain, there's a wizard doing all the magic. It's like the puppet master pulling the strings, right? It's very interesting. So this is the concept, basically. So like, for example, you think that it's a machine, you think that it's digital, like an ATM machine, but actually inside there's like an accountant counting your money. Then if you want to withdraw money, then they need to stack up the money and put it through the slot. Same thing with the coffee machine. So you think that a machine is doing your coffee, but actually there's a barista inside that's quickly frothing up your cappuccino and pushing it out, right? So this is the whole concept. And okay, there's one quite interesting case study about Amazon Echo. So Amazon Echo, so this is Amazon Echo, right? So it is a sort of virtual assistant that carries Alexa. So Alexa is the name of the virtual assistant, it's like Siri, but the device is called Echo. So the story about Echo is that it's one of the first of its kind in the market. So it's a virtual assistant with no screen to interact with. So it's not like you're talking to Siri on the phone or something like that. It's you're basically talking to the air, and then Alexa is just there listening to you, right? So the challenge that the Amazon team has is that they aim to make Alexa as conversational as possible and to respond like a human being. So it really needs to feel that you are talking to a human being, because there's no screen to talk to, right? And in order to test this out and to get some data in this, in order to make it very human, it's developing the prototype itself will be extremely costly and will require a lot of development work. You will need to work with speech scientists, you'll need to work with linguistic experts, you'll need to work with psychiatrists, psychologists, and then even after this, there will still be assumptions, because there's no real specific research of this kind of human-machine conversation before. So what they did was like, you know what, we are going to Wizard of Oz it. So what they did is that they gathered some users, if I believe it's maybe about 50 of them. Then they put them in a room and they gave them the Amazon Echo, right? So okay, this is called Amazon Echo. It will be a virtual assistant. So here's a few scenarios. We'll leave you to interact with Amazon Echo to see how you like it. And then after that, we'll just ask you some questions. So that's what they did. So the users thought that they were speaking to a machine, but actually in the other room, there is someone. So the real Alexa is actually a human being in the other room, listening to the users when the users request for a specific request, like for example, Alexa, suggest some music to me today. If that's one of the scenarios, then they will listen and then they will think of okay, what should I'm Alexa, what do I want to find out? How do I want to converse? How do I want this to go? And then they will type it out, send it back, and then Echo will sound it out as Alexa. Right? So it's literally the wizard behind the other room. And this experiment is focused on the quality of speaking. So after that, they have a lot of data on what type of responses work and what type of responses doesn't work, and what excites, what annoys the users, etc. So from here, they can really optimize the science and the psychology behind Alexa to make it as humanly conversational as possible. So this was only possible through Wizard of Oz, right? So it's very interesting. Okay, before we end, so here are the key takeaways that we should remember when it comes to user testing. So as much as possible, incentivize your users, right? Because your users, their feedbacks are very important. They are here to help you. So it'll be good to incentivize them. Then you always have to have a clear goal for each testing or experiment, and always gather as much feedback as you can, as early as you can. So test often, test early, right? So that's you want to have that kind of mindset going on. And then don't be married to your idea, because some people call it annoying, but I call it interesting. The interesting thing about user testing is that you will never know what you get. So try not to get married to your idea. I know sometimes, especially with me, I have this habit too. Like if I develop an idea, then I get so excited, then I start developing the product itself. Then, because it's your baby, right? You're so proud of it, but then you go to test, and then oh my God, then suddenly things don't go according to plan, and then you feel a bit hurt about that. But I guess now I have more of a mindset that okay, we're testing something. If it goes according to my plan, great. If it doesn't go according to my plan, you know what? Even better, because it means that I potentially dodge a very big bullet. If I didn't do the testing, knowing that, it will, not knowing, but it will go not according to my plan, right? But if I've not used the testing and released it, then I will be in for a world of pain. So bad feedback or things that doesn't go according to plan is actually very good, because it's an opportunity to learn, it's an opportunity to pivot, and to make sure that you release something that your users really want and need, right? And last but not least, of course, have fun. Testing is literally like a science experiment. It's like Mythbusters. You never know what you're gonna get. It's really part of the charm. So have fun with your testing. Okay. So that's it. That's all we have for today for user testing. Thank you very much for joining us here today. So yep, so we have a monthly webinar going on. So stay tuned for any of our next webinars. If you have any questions, if you have any topics that you'd like us to talk about, you can come to our social media, drop us a DM, drop us a message, and we'll get on to it. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody. You have a great day.